So we got into the atomic habit. You had talked about when forming a habit, you wanted to kind of stick pretty close to your flow state. Do you want to discuss what that is a little bit?
Yeah, there's a couple things. So when did you last read the book?
A few months ago.
Okay, so a few months ago, and we all know, anyone listening to this knows you also have a big boy memory, like your big boy biceps. So with your big boy memory, you have like a supercharged memory. You hold a lot of information in. I listened to the summary of this book last night, and I listened to it again this morning to try to retain the habits. It was a 20-minute summary, broke down each chapter into maybe 3 to 4 minutes.
Right.
The key takeaways I had, though, and this is going to go in hand with flow state, but the key takeaway was that a lot of people talk about motivation. We discussed this. And then a lot of people will talk about like, oh, motivation is garbage, discipline is key. The thing that actually trumps discipline, though, is actually strategizing your habits. If those habits, again, the barrier to access is, if it's easier to access and the reward is greater than the suffering, that's all proper strategy that can beat out discipline. Discipline then becomes easier. So rather than having like, they think that people who are successful, like yourself, you're in pretty good shape, you got your diet all in lock. Do you have amazing superhuman willpower, more willpower than everybody else on the planet? Or are you just strategizing your day, strategizing your habits better? So that's kind of the big takeaway that I got that I've never really thought of in that sense, is that because I was a discipline junkie for a while. For me, I was like, oh, it's all about discipline. Even people have said that about me, like, well, you're in great shape because you're so disciplined. And maybe I just strategize as well underneath the tone. But going into flow state, I don't know how to draw this on YouTube. I'm going to paint you a word picture.
X and Y axis, that people can follow that. So the X axis is the horizontal one.
Yeah, an X axis.
Yeah.
So the horizontal one is going to be your skill level.
Right.
The Y axis, or the vertical one, is going to be challenge. So achieving a flow state is kind of essentially going, what would you say, just right up the middle, like 45 degrees, straight up the middle?
Right around there, and there's kind of a gap between the two.
Yeah, so essentially it would be to challenge somebody in their flow state. If you gave somebody a workout plan, if they're a skill level 7 and the workout is a skill level 7, then they're in their flow state. Right. Whereas if you give an elite athlete who's skill level 8 and you give them a challenge workout of a 3, chances are that's going to lead to some boredom. Whereas if your skill level is low, if you're a rookie and you're doing a super challenging workout, that causes anxiety. And you see people who, like we've been in the gym for 10, 15 years. I've seen people who throw up and then they get embarrassed and then they don't want to come back to the gym because they were in that anxiety danger zone, which also could lead to injury in regards to just exercise alone.
Totally.
The key part to the flow state, though, is actually just dancing with a line of uncomfortable. That's where people find the most reward. If something's a little bit more of a struggle, it feels a little bit more rewarding because you overcame that obstacle. So you're a skill level 8 athlete, so we're going to put you at a challenge of a 9, something that just makes you a little bit uncomfortable, but it feels more rewarding because you actually got it. Right. So that correlates to the habit that you're trying to set up as well. You're a rookie person who's going to the gym. Well, I've never worked out before. I'm level 2. But I'm going to work out 7 days a week, and I'm going to do a crazy keto diet, and I'm going to do all these things. It doesn't really correlate with that flow state.
The flow state is a really important thing for me. Matching somebody's skill level to the challenge level is actually a big takeaway for me from that book, because you think about the challenge that people present themselves with. They think that if you believe that it's lots of discipline or lots of willpower, there's some really good research on the fact that willpower is actually finite. So
that was also in the book, yeah.
Yeah, so the more that you challenge willpower, you're going to get to the end of your current willpower. And when you do, that's when you have the blow up, right? So, this speaks again to the idea that you want to choose one step. And people had a hard time even in answering this question, sticking to one thing. Mm-hmm. And again, the success of a new habit goes down exponentially, even adding a second action. Mm-hmm. So that's a really important piece.
That whole thing of willpower being finite is very, very interesting to me. Like thinking that you can only have so much throughout the day. So if you end the day with chocolate in your face or a bottle of wine, like you're in the living room watching TV and there's the wine rack right beside the fireplace and you're staring at it at the end of the night, like that's challenging your willpower, especially if you like to have a glass of wine at the end of the night.
Yeah, and the other side of that is a glass of wine a day, especially red, it can be very, very healthy for you. So planning that out and strategizing how that's going to fit into your day is a good thing. I would actually ask people to have their wine with their meal because it's going to have less of an impact on the negative side and the same one on the positive end.
Yeah.
So this isn't a talk about eliminate all the good stuff. This is more a talk of, how is this going to fit? Because I actually think that most people run this line of, well, you must look X, Y, and Z or perform X, Y, and Z because you gave up all of this. And it's like, no, I solo a pizza with the best of them. It's just the rest of my day of eating isn't normal when I do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm going to have a smaller meal in the morning and likely in the afternoon because I know I'm going to solo that pizza and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to feel guilty. That's a crazy cycle to start.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that kind of falls in with neuroplasticity of what you do as far as behavior, you buy yourself more of because you're ingraining that behavior.
Yeah.
So like even the behavior of blowing up and feeling guilty about it, that is something you really got to be careful with because that can be a pattern that you create for yourself that you run. And when you run that cycle, that can be really, really hard on people.
I've discussed that on my other podcast, and we called it yo-yoing.
Yeah.
Where it was like a yo-yo form where it's like you go like let yourself go and then pull it all back and then let yourself go and then pull it all back again, that all or nothing mentality.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's actually, unfortunately, I think that's the normal because the human system is actually homeostatic. It wants to come back to a normal. So usually when people change something, they end up coming back to kind of what the normal was in a lot of cases. And I think that's something that we have to work on.